Gentlemen, America today is divided. Racial tensions, economic struggles, political animosity. How do you see the path to reconciliation? De Niro spoke first. People have stopped listening to each other. Everyone's shouting on the streets, in the news, on social media. Politicians just pour fuel on the fire for power. I grew up in New York. I've seen poverty. I've seen struggle. The problem isn't just skin color. It's about class, about how the system crushes everyone at the bottom. Denzel nodded, but his eyebrows slightly raised. He leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. Bob, I agree dialogue is needed. But let's not close our eyes to reality. I grew up in Mount Vernon, and there, if you're black, you start at a disadvantage. The system isn't just unfair, it often works against you. And that's not a theory, that's my life. De Niro pursed his lips, his eyes narrowing. I'm not denying racism, Denzel. But when we divide people into groups, white, black, whatever, we only make things worse. In the Bronx, Italians like my parents struggled just as much. They were called names, they were denied jobs. It's not just about skin color. Denzel, how would you respond? Denzel sighed, his voice quieter but sharper. Bob, you can't know what it's like to be me. My ancestors didn't choose where to go, they were brought in chains. Even today, I walk into a store, and people look at me differently. You can talk about class, but for us, it's about skin color first. De Niro leaned back sharply, his face reddening. Are you serious? You think I don't know prejudice? I was called a wop, Denzel. My parents worked themselves to the bone, so I'd have a chance. Don't tell me I don't understand. I'm not saying you didn't struggle. But don't compare your experience to mine. You can hide behind your name. I can't. And neither can millions of others. Allison, paling, announced a commercial break. What happens in 2 minutes will shock you, so don't switch channels. We're back, gentlemen. Let's try to find some common ground. You're both icons of cinema. Perhaps we can talk about art? How do you choose roles in an era when cinema often becomes a battleground between commerce and substance? Good question, Allison, Denzel began, his voice steady but with a faint note of caution. I always look for roles that mean something. Roles that make people think, feel. But, sometimes you take a project to stay in the game. Cinema is a business, and we all know it. De Niro snorted, his lips curling into a sardonic smile. The cameras caught the moment, and a hush fell over the studio. Allison raised an eyebrow, sensing the conversation teetering on the edge again. Got something to say, Bob? Denzel asked quietly, his gaze sharpening. De Niro leaned forward, his voice low but sharp, like a blade. Yeah, I do. You talk about roles that mean something, but let's be honest. That last blockbuster of yours, what was it, Denzel? Hyperstorm? 2 hours of explosions and empty dialogue. Fans expected more from you, and you went and starred in that. Commercial trash. You sold out. A dead silence fell. The studio technicians froze. The producer, in headphones, clutched his tablet. Allison opened her mouth, but didn't have time to intervene. Denzel slowly turned his head toward De Niro, his eyes narrowing, but his voice remained calm, almost icy. You're accusing me of selling out? Seriously, Bob? You think your filmography is so pure? Let's talk about Meet the Fockers 3. What was that, high art? Or just a multi-million-dollar paycheck so you could laugh at old jokes? De Niro shot up from his chair, his face flushing red. He pointed at Denzel, his voice rising. Don't you dare compare. I took comedies to show I could be versatile, that I could entertain. But I never stooped to mindless special effects and scripts written for teenagers. You're Denzel Washington. You starred in The Hurricane, in Training Day. And then Hyperstorm? You betrayed your fans. Denzel stood too, his posture calm, but his eyes blazing. He took a step toward De Niro, his voice deepening, like thunder. Betrayed? Bob, I didn't betray anyone. I took Hyperstorm because it gave me a platform to fund projects that actually matter, documentaries, theater programs for kids in poor neighborhoods. And what did you do with those millions from your comedies? Buy another restaurant? Or just sit around criticizing others for trying to survive in this industry? The studio froze. Cameras hummed, capturing every move. Allison, realizing the situation was spiraling out of control, tried to intervene. "Gentlemen, let's get back to—" But De Niro cut her off, his voice trembling with anger. "You can't justify bad art with good deeds, Denzel. Cinema is a responsibility. We shape minds, we tell stories that stay with people. You knew Hyperstorm was trash, and you signed on anyway. That's not about survival, that's about greed." Denzel crossed his arms, his smile bitter. "Greed? Bob, you're accusing me of greed? You, who did casino commercials. You, who took roles where your character is just a caricature of yourself. Don't lecture me about responsibility. You're no saint, and neither am I. But at least I'm honest with myself." Allison, sensing the conversation turning into chaos, announced another commercial break. Her voice wavered, but she maintained a professional mask. "We'll be back after a short break." De Niro stormed off to the green room, while Denzel left the interview, his steps measured but heavy. In the studio, technicians whispered, the producer ran around with a phone, trying to reach the network's management. Outside, New York carried on, taxis honked, street musicians played, and the smell of rain seeped into the air. "If you want to know how this all ends, like the video and don't switch channels." "We're back," she said, her eyes searching for Robert De Niro, who hadn't returned from the green room. "Unfortunately, it seems our conversation got too heated. Let's wrap things up." Allison, sensing the discussion had lost its purpose, quickly summed up. "Thank you, Mr. De Niro, for your candor. And thank you, Mr. Washington, for your contribution. It was a difficult but important conversation. Good night, America." The cameras shut off, and the studio erupted in whispers. Technicians scurried about. The producer in headphones waved his arms, talking on the phone with network executives. De Niro stood, his movements sharp, as if trying to shed the weight of the night. He muttered a quick thanks to Allison and headed to the green room, avoiding the staff's gazes. "In just 1 minute, an explosion is coming, so don't switch channels." Meanwhile, Denzel had already left his green room. His face was impassive, but his eyes betrayed exhaustion and disappointment. He pulled on a dark baseball cap, shoved his hands into his jacket pockets, and headed toward the studio's back exit, where a black SUV awaited. But the path to the car led past a crowd of journalists gathered at the entrance, having heard about the on-air scandal. Camera flashes cut through the night air, and the smell of wet asphalt mingled with cigarette smoke from the reporters. "Mr. Washington," shouted a young journalist with a microphone, pushing through the crowd. "What happened between you and De Niro? Is it true you fought over Hyperstorm?" Denzel paused for a moment, his jaw tightening. He glanced at the journalist, then at the others holding phones and recorders. His voice was low but firm. "We talked about important things. Sometimes the truth hurts, but I'm not here to entertain you with scandals. Want stories? Watch my films. It's all there." He raised a hand, gesturing to stop further questions, and got into the car. The SUV pulled away smoothly, leaving the journalists with their notes and speculations. Inside, Denzel leaned back, staring out the window at New York's lights. His thoughts swirled around De Niro's words. "You sold out." Those words stung deeper than he cared to admit. He remembered signing the contract for Hyperstorm, knowing it wasn't a masterpiece. But that money went to charity, to schools, to kids who otherwise had no shot. Did he owe anyone an explanation? And why did the words of De Niro, a man he respected, hurt so much? Meanwhile, De Niro slipped out through another exit, avoiding the press. His driver waited in a dark sedan parked in an alley behind the studio. The air smelled of rain, and nearby, a street musician played a saxophone melody that felt achingly familiar. De Niro got into the car, his face grim. He pulled out his phone, but didn't make any calls. Instead, he opened a message from his agent, Bob, what the hell? Every channel's buzzing about your fight with Denzel. Call me. De Niro turned off the phone and leaned back. His thoughts were chaotic. He hadn't meant to fight, but Denzel had hit his pride, his convictions. Your filmography's so pure, those words echoed in his mind. He thought of Meet the Fockers, the commercials he'd done for cash. Did he have the right to judge Denzel? And why, damn it, couldn't he just stay quiet? The car drove through nocturnal New York, passing neon signs and crowds of tourists. De Niro looked out the window, and for a moment he thought he saw his younger self, the kid from the Bronx, who dreamed of changing the world through film. Maybe we're both wrong, he thought. But someone's got to take the first step. Across America, viewers, especially those over 55, discussed the interview over dinner or in front of their TVs. Some were outraged. De Niro went too far. Others nodded. Denzel's right. He knows what he's talking about. But every conversation shared a common thread, a sense that this fight wasn't just about two actors. It was about America, its wounds, its pride, its hope. In Denzel's SUV, the radio played soft jazz. He recalled words his mentor once told him. Real strength isn't in winning an argument, but in finding a path to understanding. Denzel sighed and pulled out his phone. He started typing a message, but stopped. Not today, he thought, but maybe tomorrow. In New York, the rain finally began, drops tapping the asphalt, washing the dust from streets. And in that rhythm, in that city where anything was possible, there lingered a hope that even the sharpest words could spark the start of something new.